Hi everyone. Today's lecture is about consumer surplus and producer surplus, which is the extension of my previous lecture, in which we study the consumer surplus is the value to buyer minus amount paid by buyers. Producer surplus is the amount received by seller minus cost to seller. And the total surplus is the consumer surplus plus producer surplus. As from the previous lecture, we know that this triangle is the consumer surplus and this triangle is equals to the producer surplus. And this will be our equilibrium point. This will be our equilibrium price. In the equilibrium, this will be our quantity. So this was just a briefing. So what if we want to calculate the consumer surplus and producer surplus? So initially, from our example, we know that this triangle ABC, this triangle is consumer surplus and this triangle is producer surplus, which is DEF. This will count in the producer surplus. So if there is no intervention of government, no tax, so without tax, our consumer surplus is A plus B plus C, and the producer surplus is D plus E plus F. And the total surplus we have already discussed. This is the sum of the producer and consumer surplus. That will be A, B, C, D, E, F. This all will be the total surplus. But when government impose tax, and we assume that this is this portion A and D, this portion is the tax imposed by government. And if you don't know about this idea of this rectangle tax, please visit my previous lecture in which we have discussed the supply, demand and government policy. So you will better understand how we can see that this rectangle is government tax. So if government impose a tax, then B and T will become the government revenue, which is tax. So if we want to see after tax what will be the producer surplus and the producer and consumer surplus, then after tax only A will be the consumer surplus and F will be the producer surplus. Okay, in here we will see that B and D, that will be the government takes. So I think I have did a mistake. So our producer or total surplus is only A and F. This is no more part of a producer or consumer surplus. So A and F is the total surplus. So a tax is B plus D. Okay, so this will be the tax revenue, which and how about C and E? What does it mean by C and E? C and E is the deadweight loss, which will not go to the producer as well as not go to the consumer, even though it will not go to the government revenue. That's why C and E will count in the deadweight loss. So and this was about the a basic understanding of producer and consumer surplus. But what if government want to impose different size of the tax, or maybe our demand curve and supply curve is more elastic or inelastic? Then what will happen? So for that understanding, if we take this example in which if government want to impose less tax, so if we see only small portion will goes to the government revenue, still consumer surplus and producer surplus will be quite enough. Even though before that it was this portion was counted in producer or consumer surplus, and this portion was counted in producer surplus. But because of a little amount of tax, this portion goes to government. This will be the consumer surplus, this will be the producer surplus, this small triangle will be the deadweight loss. Here we see if government want to impose more tax, where huge amount will goes to the government, and government, because this is the tax, and this triangle will be the deadweight loss, and only this small portion will be the consumer surplus, this small portion will be the producer surplus. So means that because when government impose huge tax which affect so heavily the market, because of that a lot of people withdraw their trade from the market, and they just check out from the market. Only limited producer and consumer remain in the market. So this was about the high or less size of the tax. How about there is a difference in the elasticity of demand or supply? What does mean by elasticity and inelastic? You again go for my topic of elasticity, but here for the journal, if we want to see what does it mean by inelastic, for just understanding, I am informing that inelastic means if the price change, very rare change in any supply and demand, that is known as the inelastic. But elastic means if price change, more change in the quantity demanded or quantity supplied. Here in this example, demand is more elastic and supply is inelastic. So when supply is inelastic and demand is more elastic, this is example like any vegetable market where producer have to sell those vegetables, otherwise there is no any long-term expiry of those vegetables, so they have to sell. So in this situation, when buyers are more flexible but sellers are not flexible, when government impose tax, the huge amount of tax will goes, means burden will goes to the producer. Even though there is a huge damage in the consumer surplus, but there will be more portion from the tax goes to the government from the producer. In this case, more worse off are producers. In this case, if supply is flexible but you mean elastic, and demand is less elastic. Let's take example of medicine, life-saving drugs. In this situation, buyer always want to buy whatever is the price. If government impose tax on this situation, what will happen? That there will be huge portion of consumer surplus will go to the government, and less portion from the producer will go to the government. Even though there will be only little amount of consumer surplus left or producer surplus left, but it's still not that much loss for as compared to the consumer surplus. So this is how, if the graphs are different in way of elasticity, the damage from the government is varied because of the difference in elasticity. So this was all about the consumer producer surplus, and thank you for watching this video, and please subscribe my channel, and please share this video with your friends who are more related to the economics. Thank you so much.